What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. I wanted to dive into a training camp preview. I haven't actually broken down my thoughts, feelings, and or some of the top storylines surrounding each of these groups yet. And we have rookies showing up on the 18th, I believe, and then we have our veterans pulling up on the 23rd. So gotta get into this, speed it up real quick, but here are some of the top things I think are unique that many of you wouldn't have heard before, maybe considered, and hopefully we have some good discussions around these in the comments. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. But to kick things off, obviously QB1, we have Aaron Rodgers. Now, to me, the biggest question is, will we see a version of him in bubble wrap, or will he be a full go, right? Robert Saleh's already mentioned before that they don't plan on holding him back whatsoever, but we are going to have joint practices with every preseason team that will be facing this offseason, and we already did have that I don't even want to call it minor, but that scare where he went off to the side and, was checking out his cleats and kind of, being ginger with the same leg that he had the Achilles on. So, essentially we want to make sure he gets through the entire off-season practice healthy. Seeing him in preseason games doesn't really matter a ton. Even seeing him in a ton of joint practice reps isn't as important to me as getting him to week one, right? Because the last time we got him to week one, we couldn't even get him past the fourth snap. So that's going to be the biggest piece, and I want to know what the coaching staff's game plan around that will end up looking like. Secondly, lingering issues with Robert Saleh. Now, I don't think this will bleed onto the field in any manner, but we know that Aaron Rodgers is vocal. We know that he likes to give his piece, his 2 cents when he feels it's necessary. And I did see a couple reports out there creeping up that Aaron Rodgers had some issues with how Robert Saleh managed the whole unexcused absence situation, his Egypt trip. I don't think it'll ultimately end up being anything, but you don't want any kind of division between the coaching staff and the players right now, especially Aaron Rodgers, who is the de facto leader of this team. Regardless of however the pecking order looks on paper, we know this team is being run through Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh, and Nathaniel Hackett and essentially many other voices in the front office and coaching staff are essentially just voice pieces of him. Now, I'll give Rodgers a little bit more credit. I will give Saleh a little bit more credit than that. Obviously, he's still a grown man. He has a job to do, a position to hold down. And so I think he's tried to do as well of a balancing act as he can with this, large presence of Aaron Rodgers coming into the building, what he means to this franchise, and then of course him still needing to be the spearhead or the spear tip of the spear, to speak life into it. So I'll be curious if there's anything that's blown out of proportion with that. We've already seen a number of other minor issues become big things, so just something to be mindful of. Considering the joint practice angle, I'm curious if we will see the G5 Garrett Wilson to Aaron Rodgers connection continue to thrive against various other opponents. We didn't really get to see it on display a ton last year. There was plenty of protection issues. We were trying to get the run game going, and we really had to abandon that during a lot of joint practices, and there were still plays by Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers for sure, but it wasn't at the magnitude you would expect to see from a Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers connection, which, even speaking of it now, isn't fair to Garrett Wilson, but still, that's kind of the expectations. We, for all the Brandon Ayuk talk, I think he can have a similar type season, right? 1,300 or so yards, and definitely double-digit touchdowns. So I want to see if that connection is live and that fastball is there immediately and often when we are playing these other opponents. And then finally, can he salvage Allen Lazard? Now, this is one of the more hidden aspects to the 53-man roster conversation this year, is that Allen Lazard, if the New York Jets do go this route, right, and this would be a huge, I don't want to say undertaking, this would probably be something that many of us wouldn't normally expect, right? $11 million cap hit on the table. But if Jason Brownlee is on par or is beating out Allen Lazard in the competition, and I know he's been getting some work in special teams to try to make it a harder conversation as well, but could that push the needle to make the Jets say, let's just dead this experiment right here, we'll go with the younger developmental guy? Or can Aaron Rodgers breathe some life back into Allen Lazard and we see him become a decent third, fourth option in this passing attack, which feels like it could be sorely needed with the questionable health marks all throughout the roster? So we'll see what happens there. Then we turn to QB2, Tyrod Taylor, our backup. Some of the storylines and questions I have around him will be, will the deep ball efficiency that we've seen from him during the mandatory minicamp and OTA so far unlock an aspect in the playbook that Aaron Rodgers can take advantage of? This is something that was sorely missing a ton last year. You didn't really hear about a ton of deep ball passes being completed, right? Even with the Jason Brownlee hype and some of the stuff we got around Xavier Gipson and, Irv Charles having his moments, right? And then Garrett Wilson. There wasn't a ton of times where, there was, 40, 50 plus yard touchdowns that were occurring throughout camp, and I feel like I've heard multiple of these often so far between Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor. So it is something I'm definitely hoping for. It's been a fundamental piece missing from our passing attack now for a number of years, with Zach Wilson leading the helm. So this is something that not only you're getting from Aaron Rodgers, but having your backup in Tyrod Taylor being able to do this at an elite level as well, in my opinion, is a huge plus. And then maybe this also is something that helps tip the scales when it comes to some of these wide receiver tight end battles that we're going to see on paper. Can Tyrod Taylor remain healthy? The objective with him as well should be to get him through training camp without, scratches, bumps and bruises, right? We know they're going to come, but nothing that's going to have us start off the season and really having to consider Andrew Peasley as, our main backup option here, right? He's injury prone. I've already mentioned before, this is a label I'm comfortable tagging him with just because of how many games we've seen him miss throughout the years, season after season after season, and he's more than capable of playing through stuff. Don't get it twisted by any means, but it is something where, at least for the quarterback position, I would love to not have any concerns about, well, he's been limping a week or two before, or I think a lot of, off the top of my mind, I recall with Tyrod Taylor is midsection rib injuries, abdomen stuff, all those kind of things. And then finally, who benefits the most from having this high quality backup in Tyrod Taylor when it comes to the weapons, right? We've gotten a chance to see a ton of great reps from the rookie running backs, Isaiah Davis, Braylon Allen. We've got to hear great things about Xavier Gipson, who's been rotating in for a stint there, Malachi Corley, before he ended up being out with injury. And we're going to hear things creeping up from the likes of Jason Brownlee, and, Allen Lazard is still going to be in the mix. So who's really going to benefit from him being able to go out there and operate the playbook at a high level? It's going to be something I'm very interested in finding out. Now, here's where things get very odd, right? Let's jump into Jordan Travis, since he's the most recent rookie and technically should be QB3 by all accounts. Will we see him play during training camp? It's looking like it's closer to, if I'm putting on a scale of 0 to 10, closer to a 0 than it is a 10 that we actually see him out there. Now, I was excited earlier during OTAs because we actually saw him out there, jersey, helmet. I heard he was throwing some passes, but then the coaching staff quickly reeled a lot of that back. He just ended up going through some stretching stuff and then being off to the side on the bike, and we never really got to actually see him run through a series or anything of that nature, really. And it's been very hush-hush since, and maybe the coaching staff's just playing it extremely safe. They don't really need to risk anything with him. But the idea is that he'd be able to go out here and at least establish himself in some capacity. So not only the team, but ideally us as fans know what's going on with how we can project him moving forward in a season where we don't expect to see him at all come, September, when we start diving into the regular season. Secondly, what is it going to look like if we don't see him? Are they going to put him on IR and he's officially shut down for the entire season? Many of you have mentioned he'll come back in week 6 at some point, but I think it's dependent upon what kind of tag he's designated with. If it's IR versus like an NR, an NFI situation, non-football injury, related illness tag, etc. How quick are the Jets looking to get him on the field to at least begin practice if we don't see him during training camp, right? And then finally, one of the last ones, and this is a very interesting question we won't know the answer to really, is his career already off to a bad start? Again, the idea in my mind is that he can go out here and establish himself in some element. Okay, we see enough to say we can expect a decent QB2 competition between him and Tyrod next year, right? If Aaron Rodgers returns, or we go and grab another high-level QB, or we draft somebody in round 1. What does it look like? Can Jordan Travis be the quarterback of the future? Is he relegated to backup duty, at least for the rookie contract of his Jets tenure? Or is he a flame out? Well, where are we at? And the opinions are all over the place. I still would love him to be the QB of the future because we've seen over and over and over again how valuable that can be for continuing to build the roster around him. And to be honest, if we had Jordan Travis right now, keeping a lot more of the Sauce Gardner draft class looks more and more promising, or being able to go out there and splurge at a certain position, whatever it is, it just gives you a lot more feasible options from a money standpoint. And then finally, our QB4, Andrew Peasley, who's technically more of our QB3, but nonetheless, will he capture the QB3 role, or will it essentially be given to him, and what does that look like, right? Is he going to just be labeled as the emergency quarterback and we end up just rolling into the season with Tyrod and Aaron Rodgers? Probably not the most comfortable idea that I would say we'd all agree with. Will he actually be on the roster as a QB3? What does that mean for Jordan Travis? Does he then officially get shut down for the entirety of the season? Will they just drop Andrew Peasley at some point? And then ultimately, what is Andrew Peasley? He's one of the few guys I didn't do, or might be the only guy I didn't do a UDFA scouting breakdown for, because I wasn't expecting him to last this long, to be honest. I thought we'd see or get the news about Jordan Travis at some point. So I know he's had some nice moments during minicamp tryouts. I know he's had a shout out. I don't think it was from Schefter, but one of the New York Jets beat writers that was mentioning he's going to have some really nice moments during a preseason game, maybe even an entire quarter. But ultimately, I don't know what he can be. I don't know the strengths or the weaknesses. So keep in mind that most likely means I'll be dropping a video for you guys, ad hoc at some point, just so we're all on the same page here. But what is he? How comfortable the Jets are with him being in that QB3 role, and really how does that impact the rest of the roster breakdown, right? Having to carry 4 quarterbacks isn't ideal, especially when you talk about the steep competition at the defensive line room. If we want to keep 4 tight ends this year, if we want to try to keep 10 offensive linemen, etc., the questions get tougher and tougher as you go down the line. So ultimately, let me know what you guys think. Is there some major storylines here that I'm missing that you guys are considering, or questions that are popping up? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.